everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Jisc Beyond the Technology podcast, coming at you live from Digifest 2025 at the ICC in Birmingham. Thank you very much for joining us. My name's Ewan Leonard. I'm delighted to be joined by Dan Pullinger, who is the Head of Learning Development at the University of Leeds, and Patrice So, who is coming to us from the University of Northampton as an Associate Professor in Learning and Teaching. Patrice, Dan, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, good to be here.
Oh, how are you doing?
Really well, thank you.
Very good.
Yeah. First time attending Digifest and lots to take in and lots of ideas to go away with.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
as we were talking about earlier on, your Digifest first timers, so I think that seems like a good place to start. How have you found your first Digifest?
I mean, for me, it's been really exciting. I was here the first day on the first time, and we saw this welcome induction, very, very exciting in terms of the way the professor talked about failure. So that was really exciting. And me walking around the events as well, we had several AI-linked technology that can be used, to support our students and to support the staff member, so to make life a lot easier for staff member and researcher at the same time. It is really, really exciting. Absolutely.
Fantastic. Glad to hear it. Dan?
I really enjoyed this. My first day here. I'm just here for today, but I really enjoyed the panel this morning about where today meets tomorrow, and thinking about the possibilities and the speed, the rate of change that feels exponential at times, and how we address that. I was really interested at a point that one of the speakers made about how we need government support to support some of the opportunities that present themselves, and real investment in the sector to support that. Thinking personally from an HE sector perspective. There's also a big emphasis on collaboration, which is something I'm a real advocate for at my university as well. So it was good to hear that being expressed and agreed upon by all the members of the panel. And I was really interested as well in a short presentation earlier about esports and the potential for developing students' digital capabilities, or building on the digital capabilities that they're already gaining through esports in that academic context. So I'm keen to find out more from some colleagues and institutions that already seem to be taking strides in that area.
Yeah, absolutely. So the reason that we got you two gentlemen here today is to discuss in detail how our university is enabling a more inclusive digital environment for their international students. Now, you were both part of a talk this morning, which I caught a bit of. How did you enjoy it? And what were the key takeaways that you want people to really take away from that talk? So I'll start with you, Patrice.
Thank you so much. It was really, really exciting, and I was really, really happy to be in that talk this morning. And we share some of the challenges, I would say, ethnic minorities, international students are facing when they come to the UK. It could be technological challenges and how to integrate in the system. And the three takeaway I was proposing this morning was around, first of all, we've got to support the students before they arrive to the UK. So we have to have some sort of welcome induction, so inform them well about the challenges they're going to face when they arrive in UK in terms of technology, digital shock, and several the weather, food, and everything else. We have to provide the information. The second, takeaway I was proposing was we need to give them this sort of sense of belonging. Making sure that we have system in place to make sure that they feel as if they belong to UK, that they are welcome here. And because one thing quite important we can see here is, in terms of student, the money they provide to the UK. I mean, we have in the past few years, before Brexit and several other recommendations from the UKVI, we used to have more than 680,000 students used to come to the UK. They used to bring more than 30 billion, so net to the economy. And following some of the challenges that happened with the UKVI, they couldn't bring the dependents, they couldn't bring people coming with them, the family and so forth. We had a massive number that actually gone down. So from I take an example in my own university, we used to have in my program, we used to have over 1,000 students on an MBA program and MSc project management. That number went down massively, so after all these regulations. So the second is actually to get them to feel welcome in the university, to feel that they belong, and because they bring a lot of money to us. And thirdly, the third one is about developing digital skills training program. There are many different ways we can somehow integrate that to their learning. It could be either to have separate workshop, so that we deliver separately. But the best way to make it work is to integrate that with the learning to the courses to have the digital skills, additional study skills integrated to the courses, so they can learn as they go along. The reason I'm saying that, because when we build up some of these sessions in terms of digital skills separately, we had the best students that go into those sessions. Those students were actually targeting; they're not assessing those courses. So when we integrate that to the curriculum, basically everybody tend to attend, and they tend to gain a lot more from those sessions. That's the three main takeaways that I provided.
Really succinct and very much appreciated. Thanks, Patrice. Dan, what about yourself?
I think many of the takeaways that I presented were similar in terms of digital shock, of new technologies and processes. We had a large number of students take part in the Jisc research into international students' digital experience. We identified they do need support with tools and platforms that perhaps are unique to Leeds. They're coming from a diverse range of backgrounds and from their home countries. We shouldn't homogenise those students as a group. We need to recognise that they come with different perspectives, but we also shouldn't assume that it's a deficit that those students are arriving with. They're offering different perspectives and will have things to offer as well to that wider cohort. Patrice talked about sense of belonging there and about integration. It's important we take an inclusive approach. At Leeds, we try with our digital capabilities work not to provide a separate offer for international students where they might feel othered, but actually to integrate those students together and to cultivate a sense of cultural understanding between our students. There's a huge benefit for both our international and home students to come together, share those different perspectives and experiences, and understand each other better. We want to really build on that. So another takeaway was about just helping international students to recognise what our expectations might be of them and what they can expect from us in terms of digital support as well, and in terms of engaging those platforms, and particularly around communication with academic colleagues. It might have been different forms of communication. We found that some students were hoping for responses or communication with academic colleagues via WhatsApp or LinkedIn, which might not be the processes that we would want to employ at Leeds. So there's work to do there at that introductory stage to ensure students have that right balance in terms of expectations. And a final thing we got from taking part in this research was a bit of reflection that we had ourselves as an institution on how we actually handle this kind of data that we receive. At Leeds, we had a very high participation rate in the survey that we conducted with Jisc, but we wanted to make sure we actually used that data. We're great at Leeds at gathering lots of data. I felt we felt we could do more to actually disseminate and act on that data. So we've put in place some processes to actually make sure there's clear ownership of those data points and a clear action plan and a clear reporting process. And then we can actually communicate back to our students how we've acted upon the issues they've raised. There were challenges around over-surveying students that we're facing, and I'm sure that applies across the HE sector and more broadly as well. I think one of the ways to challenge that is to make sure we're actually showing the difference it makes when we ask for that feedback. There's nothing more disheartening than putting across your concerns, your needs, and then no change being seen.
No,
I just
absolutely.
want to bring into something Dan mentioned, which is about that deficit model, which has been a model that we use for many years to somehow define international students. So they come here with things that they're lacking, they can't do this, they can't do that. But there was a professor at United States, California University. She came up with a model that we call the Community Cultural Wealth Capital. So she came up with around 6 different capitals that international students or any minority students actually bring in higher education. She talked about things like navigation capital, resistance capital, cultural capital, linguistic capital, and civil capital, about 6 of those. And one thing we actually realize is, despite all the challenges these students might face, they come from a country where exams are the only way of being accessed. They come to the UK, they have this massive shock. They've got to write essays, they have to write coursework, do presentation work in groups, and they face all these challenges. Despite all these challenges, many of these students are still able to achieve great mark. So I mean, my department used to have huge number. We still have a huge number of international students, and among these students, we saw many students, those who came from abroad. They were able to navigate their way through and fight and be able to achieve good grades. So I think we have to appreciate what they bring in as well, so on top of the economic elements, but in terms of capital, what they actually bring to the university, which is brilliant. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've covered it a little bit in your responses here from talking about the presentations themselves. But I think I'll start with you, Dan, specifically regarding the University of Leeds. What's been driving your response as an institution and the key drivers behind improving the digital experience for your international students?
Well, international student, from a perspective of my team, which is the learning development team, we support students with their academic and digital capabilities and skills and development of those. We already see a huge demand from international students for our support. They want to make the most of the opportunities that are available to them at the university. So I think 70% of our attendees at our co-curricular workshops and one-to-one support are international students. So we want to make sure that that support is fit for purpose, that it's actually meaningful to them, and that it doesn't make assumptions about the experience they're coming with, but also feeds into that wider cultural experience, both for them and home students who are engaging with our service as well. So the approach we take is a very active and an interactive one, where we want the students to be actively contributing to those discussions. It's not a sage on a stage approach where here's the definitive answer to how to write an essay or how to be a critical thinker. It's about sharing experiences and perspectives. So we need to make sure we understand those perspectives from a digital context with students. More broadly, obviously, there's the financial situation at the moment. Whether we like it or not, the number of international students that universities recruit has a big impact on the overall sustainability of those institutions. So we need to ensure that, for want of a better phrase, those students are getting decent value for money. That isn't a sort of language that we're keen to use, but I think it is something we need to be familiar with. We need to respond to the more challenging environment and messaging that's gone out in recent years at a government level in terms of how welcome otherwise international students feel. We've got to show there's going to be that inclusive experience, that we value them, but beyond some concept of them as a cash cow, we need to show that actually we value what they're bringing and their contribution. So I think that's an important factor for us as well in engaging with this research. And this is a digital technologies we see here today. Things are moving very quickly. We need to respond to that. Artificial intelligence, I win the prize for being first to mention that. Artificial intelligence is something that we know international students are engaging with Gen AI tools. We need to help them understand, as we do with our home students, what's acceptable, how we can innovate in using those tools, but how we can actually use them responsibly in terms of assessment. So we need to really understand that variety of practice that's out there.
Yeah. Patrice, does that sort of mirror your experience in Northampton?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, when you look at the research done throughout the years, we've seen, first of all, in the past, an increased number of international students coming. And then after we had the UKVI regulations, the number dropped massively. The reason why we need international students, first of all, we mentioned about the economic aspect of it. So we can only take care of our home students because of the money that international students bring. We saw what happened when the number went down. We've seen many universities. There was an article in the Times Higher Education just last year. It was talking about universities across UK. By the end of last year, we had over 40% of university operating in deficit. We believe by the end of this year, if nothing is done about supporting international students, bringing international in the country, we're looking at about 75% of university across the UK will be operating deficit. So we've seen everywhere. So where the staff members have been reduced. In my own department at university, my department got closed down, and then I had to move to a different department, join department. I've had about let's say 20 associate lecturers that I used to manage. I had to let most of them go, so it's been a massive challenge. The number dropped massively. So we're working very hard. How can we really support those students, when they come to the university, how can you support them and give them what they're looking for, so out there. Many of these students, they come, we've got things like the APP, Assessment Participation project, but that focuses only on the home students to some degree. We need to find some solution. How can we bring in those students and then make sure that we give them what they're paying? And when it comes to the payment, the home students, most home students will take loans, so from the government. But international students, they pay between 11,000 to about nearly 40,000 for the courses. So this is massive income. And we really want to create an environment where when we bring in students from overseas, they feel that we really care about them, we really support them. And that's some of the reason why we got involved in this special research. The second reason I got involved in research personally was because my second PhD was in that area of trying to understand the challenges international student, ethnic minority students face in higher education, what type of the challenges face, the coping strategy they adopt, and to set up some policies, how the university could somehow support those students better to make sure that, when they come to UK, they like coming here and they really gain some sort of value that they can apply back in their countries. So that's some of the main reasons that we've got involved in there. And through the research, now I was part of the team applying for the ethics and organizing the survey, and also conducting the focus group with some of the Jisc researcher. We gather really, really interesting information from the students. And with this survey, we're still analyzing this survey, and we're able to get a lot of understanding of the international student experience, the digital experience, and many other cultural experience and things like that, how we were able to support them better. So that's really some of the reason, to some degree.
I was just going to get onto the subject of the actual research. It sounds like it came in at a really good time for your organisation at that stage to really enhance and improve what you're trying to do.
Absolutely, yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. Dan, same for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important as well that we keep challenging our own assumptions as well, because I think it's easy to as I say, to homogenise international students into one group, or to assume we understand their perspectives, or that we can challenge a perceived deficit that students come in with, whereas actually it's about keeping that focus on the difference and the opportunities that it brings to bring that audience in. So this research absolutely is timely. In terms of my team, we've only recently developed a student-facing digital learning offer at the University of Leeds with a number of digital learning advisors who are directly offering that support and working with academic colleagues on that. So it's really valuable to get this data, to get that understanding of students, to help prioritise as well where we put our resource. We've used the Jisc Digital Capabilities Framework as the starting point, as the structure through which we develop our service. And this research has really complemented that and helped us, to prioritise the resource that we have to meet those student needs.
And remember, as part of the phase 2 of the Jisc survey, the Jisc research, I remember when the actual report came out, I read the report and then sent a copy of it to my vice chancellor. She's really, really passionate about EDI and how to support the students. And we form a empowering Black professional working group. And from that specific working group, we're able to bring in many new projects in the university. We've got different colleagues to sit around the table. People were head of admission, HR, marketing, and some colleagues were passionate about the whole topic. And based on that, we were able to come up with a mentoring program at the University of Northampton, which is something that we're trying to expand to all our students to some degree. We had study skills program, we had digital skills program, cultural awareness program that we're actually integrating in our system. So it was really timely, the research on Jisc, and it's really helping us to really improve the service that I provide, not only for our international students, but also for our home students, because whatever a solution we propose for international students, many of these solutions can also be implemented for our home students, and everybody benefit out of it. Yeah,
I think this is in at Leeds as well. This research and other sources of information that experience has helped us take a more joined up and holistic approach across the institution. So kind of emulating what Patrice was mentioning there. Previously, it's been very siloed, the provision offered for students, for staff. There have been many potential areas of overlap and duplication of effort. Having data like this and research tools like this has helped to us to perhaps frame our digital capabilities offer differently. I chair the university's digital capabilities working group, and we're using that framework and this data to take a more consistent approach, to have a more consistent language, to ensure that we are sharing resources more effectively, and understanding out both our student and our staff body as well. There's also a big implication for this work in terms of making sure that staff are appropriately skilled to embed the digital into their work. In the same way as my team look at supporting students with digital in the context of learning outcomes in terms of assessment. There's also opportunities to think about how staff support that and how we upskill them to deliver that support for students in a scalable way across the institution. I have a team of 3 digital learner advisors. We can't necessarily support 40,000 students through that, so
I think that's acceptable, Dan. Yeah.
We need to bring staff on board and make sure that they feel comfortable with that. And often that can be recognising that actually they're already innovating, they're already doing a lot of this work, but maybe articulating that in a clear way, signposting the support that's available, and as I say, being consistent in the language that we use. And also more broadly in terms of digital capabilities, thinking about all members of staff in terms of their ways of working. How can we help staff to work more efficiently and to take opportunities to develop their digital capabilities? Artificial intelligence, again, is going to play a role in that. How can we make sure people feel confident to think about its value or the challenges it might present in their particular context? So we're just trying to take that more holistic view and in terms of accessing resource and in terms of raising this as a strategic priority in the institution, the more evidence we have to support our proposals, the better.
Yeah, I'm in terms of specifying in the University of Leeds, Dan, the insights that you've actually gained from this research, I'm assuming they've had a big impact in terms of the way that you do your work.
Yes, they have in terms of, I think something that Patrice touched on earlier is about that arrival stage and pre-arrival, and making sure that we don't make assumptions about the tools and technologies that students will use. So that it's certainly played a part there. We're trying to make sure that we weave the digital into our provision, not to have it as just a separate offer, but to actually place it in the context of assessment and learn outcomes from a student perspective. I mentioned earlier about how we are trying to take a more holistic approach, and this research at Leeds has certainly influenced that. We now have recently formed an international student success group as well. So that is recognising the importance of addressing the needs of international students. It's certainly studies like this have certainly raised the profile of those students' needs, and hopefully we'll have that ongoing impact longer term.
Patrice, looking at the University of Northampton now for yourself, in terms of the global differences that you received from the Gator, have you seen that make a big impact on the student experience for international students specifically?
Yes. I mean, when I look at some of the courses that we guys provide, so I remember I used to lead the MSc Business Analytics, and at the time, so we used to have students coming to the university with many challenges. It could be academic skills, it could be digital skills, and so forth. I decided to build a sort of program. It was a program on digital skills and academic skills sessions. So we saw many students. For example, we had a module attended by students from one faculty and from another faculty. Students were from my faculty, so because they took part in some of these courses that we developed based on some of the feedback that we got from Jisc report, we saw the grades. For example, those who took that course, they had an average about B minus in terms of the average grade. But those students who were taking the same modules and didn't have the chance to access those courses, the average grade was around maybe C minus. So we saw a massive difference, so in terms of the experience of the students, and we saw the feedback on the NSS, for example, the P test for the postgraduate studies, so the feedback students provided based on some of these courses. It was really exciting to have some of these feedback from the students, and the report they saw at the end of it, so which is fantastic. Yeah.
Fantastic. Dan, enhancements for students' experience as well, based on the insights and research gained. I'm hoping to hear some more good stories from yourself too.
Yeah. So the I think one of the things that we need to be aware of is student behaviours in an online context as well. So within and their comfort levels. So with the pandemic, there was we all had to transition very quickly to that online environment. It was a learning curve for all of us, I think, in terms of the behaviours encountered there, people having the camera on or off, whether levels of engagement and so on. What we've moved back to is a more hybrid approach in terms of our learning development delivery. So we offer face-to-face workshops. We have also online delivery, and that's reflected in courses across the board. But we need to be careful not to make assumptions about how students will engage and how comfortable they are. And there were differences identified in the overall research in terms of how comfortable students were from different areas of the world in terms of raising their hand, having their camera on, engaging in online interaction, breakout rooms, and so on. That can really vary, and I think we need to be careful to not make assumptions that one size will fit all, and design in a range of different opportunities for students to engage. And I think this also presents some challenges for us as we start to grow our fully online courses as well, which are particularly aimed at a more global audience. What's the impact there, or how do we design those courses appropriately to make sure that they are equitable with that on-campus experience, but aren't damaging to those people who have a different digital experience up to this point. So we need to support them carefully to become used to what those expectations are.
I think my university, we're having a lot of discussion around how to actually integrate these of digital capabilities, digital skills courses to our students. One approach was to have a separate session where students can, of 0 credit, where students can literally jump in the classrooms, attend the classrooms, and throughout the semester. The second approach was to actually integrate that in our lectures. One thing we faced was when we build those courses, which are, they can literally go there if they want to. It could be 0 credit, there's no credit for it. We realized that only the best students are going to those courses. Those students we're targeting, they're not attending these courses. So we decide as a university to, rather than having one-off courses that we have separately and students can literally go to when they feel like attending, we actually integrate that in our courses. So at the moment, I'm working with the head of academic practices to see how we're able to build teaching material for the lecturers, to see how they can integrate that within the teaching in such a way that so we don't have to have separate sessions and having all the students benefiting from all these resources that we're providing. That's really what we're doing at the moment. Yeah,
I think that's a very similar approach to at Leeds as well. So it's all about embedding that digital capability development and academic skills development into the curriculum. So that co-design and co-delivery. And again, as I mentioned earlier, that makes it much more scalable. We can't meet all of the students otherwise. I think, again, it allows it to have that subject context as well, so the students see that more immediate value in terms of their assessment, their learning outcomes, and hopefully in terms of their future careers or future lives, whatever endeavours they want to get involved in. The co-curricular, we're trying to use more in terms of either added value, because students think, actually, I want to find out, maybe students use the Jisc discovery tool, assess their digital capabilities and things, actually this is an area I'd like to do a bit more work in, so they can self-select. Or it's going beyond the academic sphere to think about other things that they're interested in. So at the moment we've got a podcasting series that is open to staff and students, and that doesn't have to relate to their academic study at all. In fact, many of the students attending are thinking about how they can use that for extracurricular activity that they're interested in, or their side hustle, or lots of different ways to move things forward. Academic colleagues using it to promote their research or the things they're interested in. And we're thinking about actually can we use that for things like zine making or for web design and so on. So offering something different, but nonetheless beneficial to them in the future through that co-curricular. So a challenge for us will be to find the right balance. I think what we don't want to do is just to offer one-off workshops that intend to fill a gap of something they didn't get within the programme. It needs to be fully integrated in terms of those core skills.
Gentlemen, I'm sure we could continue talking about this for quite some time. It's been really enjoyable to do so, but we have actually run out of time. Just a quick one. Where can people get in touch with you if they want to continue these conversations? Because they are absolutely worth having. So, Patrice, how can people get in touch with you?
I work for Northampton University, so they can find me. I've got a lot of presentation shows, so you can find me on the website of Northampton University website, and also on LinkedIn Learning. So on LinkedIn, I'm available there as well, so they can just search my name. They will find me everywhere. So yeah.
Thank you very much. And you, Dan?
Yes, you can find me on the University of Leeds Libraries website, and again on LinkedIn. I'm also contactable on there.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon and for your excellent talks earlier on today.
Thank you.